My journey into squash is quite a sporty one, in the sense that as a kid I trialled a lot of sports growing up. I joined most after school clubs involving sport, and any sport that I was introduced to, I was keen to explore all the skills that were involved in it. Racket sports were probably by far my favourite. I really liked badminton, I liked tennis, short tennis as a little kid, and for me the squash courts where I grew up at the sports centre were right as you come in the door. It was a sport that had always intrigued me. It was loud, it was fast, and it looked really, really competitive in a gladiatorial sense, and I couldn't wait to try it. Yeah, I loved it straight away. It gave me this real sense of ownership, being an individual sport and being in such close proximity with my opponent. I really liked the fact that it was up to me and me only, that the outcome and my performance, whereas in a team sport you were reliant on others. So I very quickly loved the game and decided to do away with all the other sports, as this one really took my fancy and I couldn't wait to get stuck into some competitions as a junior.
To tell you a little bit about my journey into squash, I've spent a lifetime immersed in sport, at grassroots sports development, but also in the highest performance environment. So I started my career as an international athlete, moved into performance coaching where I worked with international athletes and rugby league clubs, moved into regional sports development and followed that with many years working in administration for national governing bodies. First of all UK Athletics, followed by the British Equestrian Federation. I got some really good support from Sport England at the time and from UK Sport, and developed a really good understanding of the sporting network.
I started playing squash when I was 11. I lived in England at the time, in Essex, and my parents both played squash, but I didn't really start playing properly until my school did a programme with the local squash club, and I met a coach through that and started having coaching and started competing. Played at county level as a junior and also as a senior, and then in 2002 moved up to Inverness in Scotland and joined the local club there, and I'm now very fortunate to be employed as the manager there as well. Still playing regularly, and I now compete at master level, and I'm also a level 2 coach, so I get involved in coaching at the club, so mainly juniors and women.
I've always been really passionate about supporting women and girls in sport. However, I had just finished my PhD and the opportunity came up as Women and Girls Development Officer, and it seemed like a really good fit for me in terms of not only working within improving female participation, but also to work with an organisation who I felt were really forward thinking and looking to promote positive culture changes in sport.
I started in squash when I was 6 years old, through my dad, who was president of the local squash club. I loved it straight away, played all through juniors to a national level. I kept playing when I went to university until my final year, when I decided to have a year off as I just needed a break. Then when I finished university, I decided I wanted to play again and play professionally, and then I ended up playing professionally for the next 7 years, where I represented New Zealand as well. And then once I finished and retired from playing, I then went into coaching, starting at club level, and then eventually moving to Scotland to be a senior performance coach.
So I first got into squash through my dad. He lives down in London and I used to fly down and go to see him in the holidays. We'd go down to the squash club and he plays mates, and eventually I'd go from watching to hitting a ball with him after his match, and then maybe playing with a couple of his friends' kids. And I got so involved that when I came back home to Scotland, I absolutely begged my mum to take me along to the local coaching. So I went to Bell Sports Centre, got the after school coaching, and then sort of progressed from there through the regional pathway and then onto the national pathway, where I moved to Edinburgh to go to uni. and I also decided that I wanted to train full time along with uni. So that was definitely a bit of a balancing act, trying to get a degree as well as be a pro athlete. But I managed it. I graduated last year, and this year's been pretty tricky in terms of coronavirus and all these kinds of things, but I also decided to start up my own business. So I run a nutrition company, and yeah, it's definitely a bit of a balancing act, you know, trying to get more qualifications and upskill, as well as trying to be a pro athlete. But things like time management and just really knowing why I'm doing something is really, really important, and yeah, I absolutely love it. I wouldn't change it for the world.